Greetings, friends. It's Friday the 13th, and I'm standing on a bunch of treacherous boulders here with big cracks in between them going down more than 10 feet, so I have to be careful here. And it's been raining and it's sunny at the same time, so I don't know, making the best of it down by Lake Ontario here. And I'm going to talk to you today about, as the sun beats down on me, that, you know, there's many people with egos, but sometimes they try to disguise their desire for dominance. They disguise it in a sneaky way, and they offer what they would put forward as wisdom or help. So you need to avoid those people, or you can criticize them, but generally you want to avoid them. So let me give you 3 examples from my own life. The first example would be when I was at the GO train station, which is one of the transportation networks we use. About a month ago, I went to visit my grandpa, and of course I take my bike because I don't drive, and that's another story. But I mix it with the transit and my bike. And one of the legs of my long journey, which takes an hour and a half, and so I'm trying to conserve energy, it's normal for me to bike to the end of this platform. It's an open platform. It's not like an underground subway platform. There's no one else around. There's no other trains coming, and I do that every time. I bike to the end to conserve energy, because I know when the train pulls into the desired stop, I have to be at the other end of the platform, as opposed to where you enter it. So naturally, only a moron, if they have a bike, is going to walk their bike slowly down that platform to follow all the rules. So as I was entering the station, before getting onto the platform, I passed these 3 young people in their mid-20s, 2 guys, 1 girl. They're having an animated conversation. I noticed they're wearing clothing that says Bombardier logo on it. Bombardier is a manufacturer of transportation technology. They do streetcars, trams, trains, maybe other things too in Canada. A big employer, however, they're very inefficient. I don't have any respect for them. They take money from the government. They can't meet their contracts. Too big to fail. So if you work for Bombardier, you might know about trains, but that's not giving you any respect in my books. Just because you happen to work at Bombardier in itself, that's not getting you any points. So anyways, that's the background, and I'm on the platform there, and there's no one else around. I say, one of the young guys, he said goodbye to the other 2 people. I guess they went, and they were having that conversation about something work-related, very animated, and the guy was saying yeah, I would just tell him this, and they were discussing some encounters they had. I have no idea, but anyways, the one guy from that conversation, I see him hanging around the middle of the platform. Then he starts walking my direction. Maybe he was hanging around there for a minute or so. Then I see him heading towards where I am, and he comes up to me. The guy looks about 25 years old, kind of shorter than me, but a bit more stockier than me, and short hairdo and sunglasses, and in a friendly but dominating way, he's like, he says to me, you really shouldn't bike on the platform, because if you bike on the platform, there was a guy about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and he was doing the same thing, and a train came from behind, and the suction supposedly sucked him into the train, and he was killed because he was hit by the train. Something about being too close to the tracks, and the suction sucked him in there, and I'm just like, I'm not doing it when there's a train coming. And he was like, you can't hear if the train's coming, it could be silent. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's not, I'm pretty considerate here. I was like, I respect your advice, but I don't think that's going to happen to me. And so he basically left me alone then. So he got the message that I wasn't impressed, but I didn't want to tell him to fuck off, because he's supposedly offering helpful advice. And you see, the thing is, I talked to this about my friends, and we were like, no, there's no way. His story about that guy who was biking and got pulled into a train because of suction, that guy was probably drunk or on drugs. Who knows? But it doesn't make sense, because if the suction could be that strong, then passengers who are waiting on their trains, they would have problems being sucked into trains. It doesn't make sense. Maybe if you're right next to the tracks, which I wouldn't do that anyways, I'd be in the middle of the platform. But this guy, because he worked from Bombardier, I'm assuming he had some knowledge about trains, and so, but that's not so much what it was. I think he was on an emotional high because of the conversation he'd been in earlier, and now his 2 companions had left him, and he was on his own, but he was still buzzing. he was still buzzing, and being in a conversation about work a lot of the time, because work involves getting paid and you're doing something supposedly important, it can rush people's egos a bit. And then sometimes when you're with your workmates, you're all feeding on that. But then when your workmates are gone, then that emotional high is still affecting that guy. So he came up to me because, I'm not saying he did it consciously, but clearly unconsciously, he was on a power rush, an emotional high, and he wanted to tell someone not to do something. Fuck, there's no one else around on the platform. Come on, man. The guy's like, I'm 7 years older than him, probably. So I thought that was a good example of a sneaky ego. They try to claim to give you wisdom or help, but actually they're just trying to dominate you, but they don't deserve. There's people who can dominate us. There's people who can give us necessary knowledge. Those people, you know, sometimes they're annoying, but you gotta kind of listen to them because you know they earned it. That guy, he doesn't have any points right off the get-go. Why should he be telling me that? People break the rules all the time. People go through stop signs all the time. People break the rules. You would expect someone else, like some old person or a woman. You wouldn't expect a young white man to be telling another young white man, hey, you got to follow the rules here? Come on, what's up with that? So that's example number one. Example number two is a shorter example. When I was volunteering in Ghana, there was this guy called Ben. He was 20 years older than me. He was gay, this tall white guy from Texas with a Texas accent, but I guess because he was gay, he didn't like Texas, so he moved to some northeast state. I don't know if it was Massachusetts or New York State, or he lived in some town, not in a big city, I don't know, that's kind of weird. And he adopted some Chinese boy, which is, I feel sorry for that boy, he's probably gonna be fucked up. And Ben had the same thing where he's telling everyone else what to do. Actually, now that I think of it, he was friends with this French chick. I don't remember her name, but she was really dominating too. She had a big ego too. And just to give you an example, this sets up well, so this will be 4 examples. I forgot her name. She was from France and just wanted to volunteer in Ghana like Ben, but you know, so emotional to reconnect with whatever, or you know, but then she didn't like the fact that us volunteers were carrying plastic water bottles in public. She's like, well, the normal people, they can only afford the water bags, not the plastic water bottles. So she's like, you should put that away. You should hide that. She's only been in the fucking country 2 weeks and she's telling me that. But you know, you just ignore those people. You stay away from them. And then she's crying. She's all emotional, and because her husband died and she's all alone, and people have to comfort her. So maybe I'm good getting off the main storyline there. But that's the sort of person she was. I was trying to tell you about Ben, but Ben and her were like this. Ben also, he gave bad advice. Like, he actually gave bad advice because there was a lot of music playing at night sometimes, and it was fucking loud, and so he gave me these earplugs. He's like, trust me on this. These are good earplugs, and they're like silly putty. You push it into your ear, and then it'll form to your ear. And I'm like, okay, Ben, sounds good. So I did that. Big fucking mistake. I was trying to get bits of that material out of my ears. Like 2 months later, it got stuck in my hair. I don't know, it didn't solidify properly. Whatever he gave me, it actually caused a problem, like a blockage in my ear, because the earwax started to congeal around that material. So that was a problem I had to deal with later. We got to do our laundry there in Ghana because there's no washing machine, not at the volunteer compound. This is when I first went there. There's no volunteer washing machine. So we got to do it the old-fashioned way with a bucket out in the sun, let the sun dry it. And he's given me advice on how to do the laundry that I didn't ask for. And I mean, it's not too complicated. You use soap, you use water, you mush it around and then you got to rinse it. I mean, sure, you might leave some soap on it, and then you'll learn better next time. And I forget what exactly he was telling me. Something annoying, but I just told him, like, Ben, I'm sure I can figure it out. And he was like, okay. And then he never gave me any trouble again. So that's a good example. He's not in any position to be doing that. Maybe it was like the volunteer coordinator, a Ghanaian who knows the local culture, and he's like, it's like, you gotta do it this way because for whatever important reason. Okay, he can be giving me necessary information. Necessary information sometimes needs to be conveyed. Sometimes it's annoying, but if it's by someone who doesn't deserve it, then you should just ignore them, or you can criticize them. You can tell them, this is what I think you're doing, because you have a big ego. But then you might just make things worse, so then you have to have an escape route if you just need to get out of that situation. So then the third example would be when I went to the subway station, Kipling Station, which is on the end of the line, maybe 2 months ago. They had some volunteer woman. She's got the volunteer vest on, just in case you're wondering, for information, for giving people directions, whatever. Basically, she's not an employee. And I've never seen these people normally. I guess, the TTC is so crammed with people now. It's so inefficient. And I mean, Toronto is so overpopulated because we take in so many immigrants, and it's just a circus. So you can see the need for these sorts of people. But generally, she's the sort of person you would approach. You don't need her to just come up to you if you're not saying anything. And when I get down the escalator, I see her there, and she's talking to the 2 TTC employees who are just probably wishing she'll leave them alone because they got their own jobs to do. And I see how animated she is talking to them, and I don't know, she's maybe middle-aged woman, probably doesn't have anything better to do with her fucking life. So she's in, and I had to fix something on my bike, so I had to put it down. I'm just like, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact with these people. Sure, and I get past her. Okay, she still hasn't noticed me. I know she's looking around because no one passing around at this moment. I know she's searching and scanning like a hawk for her next meal. And then I took my bike and put it on the escalator. Maybe that's not allowed technically, but I do it all the time because honestly, I don't want to carry it up the stairs. And then I'm already halfway up the escalator, and she's like behind me. I can't even see her. I just hear her. She says, "Don't you want to take that in the elevator?" And I said, I waited a few seconds for effect, and I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, okay, just trying to make it easier for you. Oh, and then we get the judgmental language. Oh, okay, then, yeah. See? So that's all it was ever about. If she was really genuine, I wouldn't have got that little remark there, even though I was being an asshole. But I was being an asshole because she's being overbearing unnecessarily. That's just a big ego. A sneaky ego. They try to offer guidance, they try to offer wisdom, but really it's not necessary. You didn't ask for it. I mean, sure, there's certain situations where something could be very dangerous and you need to tell some. That's why you have people really trained to do that. But let me give you an example of someone who I would respect, not a real person, but the character of Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket. That guy was an asshole, but he had a designated job to drill the recruits, drill the Marines, make them into fucking Marines. They're there to be Marines. So what do you expect? He's an asshole, and sure, he has a huge ego, but at least he's doing it in a blunt way. He's doing it in a direct way. He's not really trying to hide his true personality. Maybe everyone does to an extent, but not in his context. He's not, in that sense, he's not overstepping his bounds. So you can hate him, but you can still respect him, right? Whereas you can't respect these other sneaky egos. There's nothing sneaky about him. Sergeant Hartman was just a jackass. So anyways, I think there's times in life when necessary information needs to be conveyed, and there's certain people usually to do that. And sometimes they're annoying, but generally they earn their position. They're not necessarily annoying people. I think a lot of the time when someone is annoying and they're trying to offer you guidance or help, that just should show you they're not really someone you ought to listen to anyways. They don't have any automatic points in the book. An ego naturally wants to grow, it wants to expand, it wants to suck energy into itself. So this is a form of energy vampirism, and that's a widespread habit throughout our culture. There's all sorts of different forms of it, but I'm giving you one example of how that manifests. People just suck energy into themselves. But they have to take it from other people. That's what makes it wrong. There's nothing wrong with getting energy from your environment. This is a beautiful environment. Getting inspiration, getting whatever from things. But when you don't have that, when you're a vacuum and you're sucking out energy from other people, the only option for these other people is to get away from you. Or you'll have a direct confrontation with them, and it probably won't end well. You'll have a confrontation and then either make yourself understood and then they won't bother you anymore. Sometimes you can try that option. I've tried that because I'm the sort of personality I don't like people doing that to me. Sometimes I've been able to do that and then they won't bother me again, but it depends. Sometimes people will take it really the wrong way and then you'll have even worse problems. So it's something you have to be a bit subtle. You have to be reading the situation a bit. Hasta luego, amigos.